Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yenam Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. So Krishna is very deeply in very detailed analysis giving this revelation that the greatest enemy of this human race is in the form of lust. Arjuna inquired that what is that invisible force that pushes us, that forces us to abandon our duty? And Krishna says that it is lust. It is lust only, O Arjuna. And Krishna has given the origin of lust. It originates from where? A little louder, please. No, it originates from where? It resides in the sense objects. That is the residing place. What is the originating point from where it, manifests or comes into prominence? Huh? No, it affects the senses. It, takes shelter in the senses. But where is the originating point from where it originates? Huh? Yes, but from the mode of passion. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhava. Udbhava means it manifests or it takes birth. So as the living entity comes in contact with the mode of goodness, he is in his natural state. But as he comes in contact with the mode of passion, he is infected by lust. And it does not remain at that level. The lust, when it is not satisfied, it transforms into wrath or anger, which pushes the living entity even further down to the mode of ignorance. And then Krishna, of course, spoke that where does this lust reside? This lust resides in the senses. It also resides in the mind, also in the intelligence. So all these strategic places or the positions have been captured by lust. And why it is such a dangerous, why it is so deadly? What is the characteristics of lust? You remember? What is the characteristics of lust? Huh? It is never satisfied. What is the example given? Yes. It burns like fire. If you add fuel to fire, it cannot be terminated. And what else? What else is the characteristics of lust? Why it is the most devouring enemy? Wait. Let them think. Sangram, you remember? Try to at least read once what we have discussed. And even from the online viewers, devotees, why it is the all-devouring enemy of the human race? Yes. Sorry. Greed. Yes, that is true. That is true. But what is the principle? Yes. Papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. What it does? It covers the living entities' real knowledge. What is the real knowledge? Of who we are. So, because of lust, we do not know who we are. We are identifying ourselves either with body or with our mind and intelligence. Now, what is Vijnana? Jnana is knowledge of the self. Now, what is Vijnana? It says Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. What is Vijnana? Okay. Our relation, our eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. So it first covers ourselves, our identity, and it also covers our eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. So then Krishna, after explaining that what are the dangers of lust and how lust adversely affects the living entity and pushes it to perform sinful activities. All the sinful action which is being performed is under the influence of lust. So in the 41st verse that we discussed last time, Krishna begins to give the solution. How to combat, how to counteract with the lust. And he says, how to begin? What is the beginning point? Tasmat tvam indriyani adav. Begin by regulating your senses. And so let us see what Krishna speaks next. And now Krishna gives the hierarchy of how the lust impacts and where all and how one can combat or conquer lust. 42nd verse. Indriyani parani ahur indriyabhyo paramana manasastu parabuddhir yo buddhe paratastuta. So indriyani parani ahur. So the senses, parani means which is higher, or here it is said as superior. The senses are higher than the sense objects. Why? Because the sense objects are sense object is mind. Then sense objects are dead matter. Like this laptop. It may be of Apple, it may be of HP, or it may be of whatever, whoever. But it is dead. So the senses are active. The sense objects are dead. So when the sense objects come in contact with the senses, what the senses does? The senses agitate the mind. It is not the sense object. The sense objects, it attracts the senses and the senses agitate the mind. But the mind is always So first Krishna is saying the first level of understanding is that the senses are higher than the dull matter. Indriyani parani ahu. But higher than the senses, indriyabhyo param manaha. Higher than the senses is the mind. Because mind is the master, the controller of the senses. But even the mind is not the, whole soul in charge. Manasastu parabuddhe. But even higher than the mind is the intelligence. The intelligence. And even higher than intelligence is the self, the soul. Yo buddhe parasastu saha. Saha here means the living entity. So the working senses are superior to the dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So why Krishna is giving this hierarchy? Why he is giving us this step-by-step description of who is lower and who is higher? Any thoughts? Why Krishna is giving this hierarchy? You have read. Huh? Okay. Still? Why? No, but then he should speak about senses. Why is he speaking about the mind? Why is he speaking about the intelligence? And why is he speaking about the soul? Think. Open your window of contemplating. Why Krishna is giving this hierarchy or the elevation? Yes? Yeah. Then, so, yeah. Krishna is giving this hierarchy to make us realize that we are higher than all those places where the lust impacts. If we can elevate our consciousness to the level of soul, then lust cannot impact us. When we are in lower level of consciousness, when we are at the sensuous level, when we are on the mental platform, or even when we are on the intellectual platform, the impact of lust is there. But if we come to the spiritual platform, to the platform of soul, where we recognize ourselves and soul, and we perform our activities at the level of soul, then one can conquer lust. Prabhupada gives a big purport. Let us discuss the purport. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. How? Because through the senses, we see the form, and in the form of lust, what is there? There is attraction. As soon as we see someone in a beautiful form, it attracts us. It is an outlet for lust, isn't it? As soon as we hear something which is very attractive, immediately the lust in the organ, it becomes active. So these are the different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body. Where is there lust? Lust is there in the heart. But it is given vent through the senses. Are you with me? Like, we are all here. Soon as gulab jamun comes here, what will happen? Our eyes will see. Our nose will smell. Our mind will have a feeling that last time I tasted gulab jamun, how was it? Sweet? Huh? So I want to enjoy it. So what is the senses? Senses is the outlet for lust. but it is went through the senses. So the lust is there, but it is hiding inside. It is not visible. Is it visible? No. But it went or it manifests when the senses become active. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when it manifests. Why? To gratify the senses, to enjoy the senses. But when one is Krishna conscious, his goal is not sense gratification. What is his goal? Is to please Krishna, is to serve Krishna, is to make Krishna's senses become satisfied. So he's not interested in enjoying the sense objects. So Prabhupada is giving this elevation that if we become Krishna conscious, then the senses will not want lust. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions, as described here, ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. So, Krishna conscious means that the person is at the platform of soul. Bodily action means the functions of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily action. So many times, many practitioners, they attempt to make the senses become inactive or inert by artificially trying to stop all bodily actions. You've seen some yogis or some babajis, what they will do? They will leave the city life and they will go in a mountain cave. And what they will do? They will be alone and they will shut their eyes. They will shut their ears. They will try to even shut their nose. Of course, they have shut their mouth. They will not eat. They will not see. They will not hear. They will not speak. But will the senses become dead? Not possible. But since the mind is active, even if they try to do that, we see the case of Saubari Muni. His senses were not active. If his senses were active, he could not be beneath the water for so many long years, many thousands of years. All his senses were completely under control. They were subjugated. But what happened? As soon as he saw two fishes mating, what happened? The mind became agitated. And a desire in his heart became manifest that he wants to enjoy. And immediately his vow, his penance, his austerity was broken. He came out and he went to the king and he said that I want to marry your daughter. And when the king saw this old man, if you keep anything in water for a few days, what is the shape of that article? What happens if you keep anything in water? What happens? It starts to lose the shape, form. Its attractiveness is, and see this sage who was for so thousands of years. So the king thought that who will marry this old man, dilapidated man? But because he was a sage and king was very intelligent, he said, I have no objection, but I cannot force my daughters to marry. If any of my daughter agrees to marry you, then you can marry them. So the sage understood the king's mind. He thought that this king is thinking that I am an old, ugly man. So with his mystic powers, with his yogic siddhis, he transformed himself into a very beautiful young prince. And as he entered the chambers of all the princes were charmed. And all of them started fighting that I want to marry this prince. And eventually all the 50 daughters got married to the sage. You see, this is lust. And after trying to enjoy them for many, many years, ultimately the sage realized what a mistake he has done. He was conquered by lust. Not only the sage. Just few months back, I read one story. I was shocked. This is from here in Delhi only. There was one young man who came from Haryana, Yamuna Nagar, to study here in Delhi. And there was one girl. She was studying here in this college, SRCC. Lady Shri Ram College. What is it? Lady Shri Ram College. Not SRCC, Lady Shri. And this boy was very attractive and very rich. So he was Mr. University. And that girl became Miss University. And they both became, attracted to each other. So-called lust or love, their so-called love. They got married also. This boy had big business. And then they went to their hometown, Yamuna Nagar. And they were living a family life. Many, many years of marriage. They had children. Children became grown up also. And then you see what happens normally in the family. The lady became a little bulky. She wanted to remain what she was before in her college. But this is possible? It is not possible. So what she did, she joined one gym in Yamuna Nagar. And why did she join the gym? To lose some weight and to look young again. And there where she was, going regularly to the gym, she got entangled with the trainer there. And that entanglement became so deep, the influence of lust, that she killed her husband. And how both of them planned and killed, after many, many years, this was revealed. So this is very, very dangerous, most formidable enemy, lust. Why? Because even if you regulate your senses, it can enter through your mind and it can destroy everything. So Krishna is telling here that, but since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act. That is why Krishna spoke that principle in the 3rd chapter only. In the 4th verse, I think, Krishna spoke that Karmendriya Sanyamya, 6th verse. Karmendriyani Sanyamya Yaste Manasasmaran. So just by one thought which is provoked in the mind, lust can create havoc. And whatever sense regulation we have done, it can destroy at one stroke. So it is very, very, significant to note that how lust is so formidable and how it can act. Prabhupada is saying, as it does during dreaming. So during the sleep, what happens? Our senses become silent, isn't it? Otherwise, we will not sleep. But when we are dreaming, what is active? The mind is active. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence. So the mind may be a very formidable force, as we will see in the 6th chapter. But Krishna is assuring us that don't worry. If the mind is very obstinate and very forceful, still you have the faculty of intelligence. And Prabhupada says that above the mind is the determination of the intelligence. Dhriti. And above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind and senses, will be automatically engaged. So what we have to do? We have to regulate the senses. How to regulate the senses? By following the 4 regulative principles. Simple. What we have to do with the mind? The mind cannot be put to rest. So we have to engage the mind. How to engage the mind? By constant chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then for determination of the intelligence, because intelligence is even higher than the mind and the senses, intelligence has to be strengthened. Intelligence has to be strengthened. How do we strengthen the intelligence? Do we see the intelligence? Can we take the intelligence to the gym? Okay, like I do, push-ups, weight lift, isn't it? When you go to the gym, what do? You strengthen your body. But what about intelligence? It is very subtle. So how do we strengthen the intelligence? Very simple. What are we doing now? By studying of scripture, Shastra, Bhagavad Gita. What we are receiving? We are receiving knowledge. Where is knowledge stored? In the mind. Oh, in the intelligence. It gives us the ability to discriminate. It gives us the distinction of what is right and what is wrong. What is dharma, what is adharma. What is to be done and what is to be rejected. So in this way, what we can do? We can come to the level of soul proper. If therefore soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind and senses, will be automatically engaged. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratifications are superior to the senses. The mind is superior to the sense objects. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly. That is why Krishna says, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridavrata. Satatam. Because lust is everywhere. If you even regulate your senses, if the mind is contemplating, it will fill the senses also with lust. Even if you control your mind and regulate your senses, it will fill the intelligence with lust. So it will spoil all your regulation. So what we have to do, we have to engage everything. How we have to engage? We engage the senses, we engage the mind, we engage the intelligence. See how the soul functions. How can we reach the soul? Can we directly reach the soul? No, we do not have any cognizance of the soul. Do we have any experience of soul? पता है आत्मा क्या है? क्या है? आत्मा तक पहुंचेंगे कैसे? It is through the faculties of the senses, mind and intelligence. So when we regulate, engage and strengthen, then we can make the soul become active. How? When we engage the senses, the mind and the intelligence, all these faculties in Krishna's service. Then we come to the spiritual platform. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. The mental attitude has already been explained. Param drishtva nivartate. Param drishtva nivartate means that we cultivate a higher taste. What is the higher taste? The spiritual platform, spiritual taste. If we do not cultivate the spiritual or the higher taste, then we will be forced to pursue the lower taste. Like I give an example of a child. If you want to take away the toy of a child, is it possible? आप बच्चे से खिलौना ले लीजिए तो क्या करेगा वो? He'll start crying. He will make the entire house. He'll create havoc. But if you give him a bigger toy, then what will happen? He will leave it. We now go to Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, many times, there are monkeys. I don't know from where this training has come. They will take away the specs. They will take away the mobiles. And you try whatever, they will not give. But if you give them fruity, I have seen, I lost my specs once. If you offer them fruity, they will catch the fruity and they will drop the speck. Why? Because they are more satisfied with what they have got. But if you don't give them fruity, will they leave the speck? No, they will break the speck. I have seen they start chewing it and make it useless. So this is Param Drishpa. So the senses, the mind and the intelligence, please try to understand what Krishna is explaining through this verse. They need constant engagement. And if we are not able to give them the engagement in Krishna consciousness, they will be engaged in sense gratification. They cannot be inert or they cannot be inactive. You understand? So if we are not able to come to that platform of constantly engaging, then the lust will vent and it will capture the living entity. So what he will perform? He will perform the activities of sense gratification. He will try to satisfy his lust. If we are not trying to satisfy Krishna, invariably we will be trying to satisfy the lust. Why? Because the lust has presence in all our faculties. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of being engaged in lower propensities. What is the lower propensity? Lust. Why? Because lust is born in the mode of passion. In Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is solution to the whole problem. And how do we understand this constitutional position of the soul? Through study of Shastra, the study of scriptures. So intelligence has to be sharpened or strengthened by the study of scriptures. Mind has to be constantly engaged in chanting the hymns. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist, neophyte, you understand, a beginner. There are 3 stages. Neophyte is the beginner state. Then there is one who is a Madhyam Adhikari. One who is neither neophyte nor very advanced. He is entering. You understand entering, no? Entering. Entering. Who is in between. And then there is finally one who is advanced. So Prabhupada is saying for a neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. What is the example given? Krishna gave an example in this chapter. How to keep the senses aloof from the objects of the senses. What analogy he gave? If you remember, not long back we discussed. Tortoise. In the 58th or 30, sorry, which verse he gave? In this chapter only he gave 38. Which one? No. Oh, it was in the second chapter, sorry. Second chapter, 58. 58 was. Kurmo angani yada samharte charham kurmo angani sarvasham. Indriyani indriyarthebhyos tasya pragya pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw the senses from the sense objects as the tortoise draws its limbs. So this is for whom? This is only for the neophyte. But for the entry more advanced, it will not work. This is the initial stage. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one mind in Krishna consciousness, by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong like serpents, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. So if we come to the level of being Krishna conscious, what does it mean to be Krishna conscious? So many times we have discussed. What is being Krishna conscious? What it means to be Krishna conscious is to know who we are, that we are not this body, we are not this minds, we are spirit soul. But this cannot be realized just by speaking or just by hearing also. One cannot come to any level of realization. It has to be practiced. And this practice is a practice of lifetime. And maybe if not even one life, it may take many lives. Depends on how sincere and serious the practitioner is. So if one becomes Krishna conscious, then he is also aware of his relation with the Supreme Lord. That is the constitutional position. Prabhupada is talking about. When intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul. Yeah. So if one becomes Krishna conscious, and how one becomes Krishna conscious is by the process of submission and surrender. Then automatically the mind becomes stronger. How the mind becomes stronger? Mind becomes stronger means what? What it means that the mind becomes stronger here in the context that we are discussing, that the mind becomes stronger. Please apply your mind here. I know it is difficult, not easy. Because in the atmosphere that we are in, it is surcharged with passion. And the characteristic of passion is there cannot be focus. The mind is always distracted. Difficult, huh? You have to make a lot of effort. बहुत जोर लगाना पड़ता है to be able to see what we are discussing even. So what it means to make the mind stronger? Now you can also speak. Why everyone on the YouTube or this Zoom, they are all audio off, video off. Most of them are video off. This is by default setting. This setting is there by default.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Settings cannot change. Difficult to change. Is it easy to change? Very difficult. So what it means to make the mind stronger? Stronger is through the eternal relationship of the Lord. So as we invoke the relationship, then the mind cannot be impacted by lust. That is what it means to make the mind stronger. And even though the senses are very strong like serpents, they will no more be effective than the serpents with the broken fangs. So you see, you have seen serpents or snakes. What the snakes do? They have poison. And how they inject poison? Through their fangs. But if you break the fangs, then what will happen? They cannot inject the poison. That is what the snake charmer does. Snake charmer, sapera. What he does? He breaks the fangs of the snake whom he has captured. So similarly, how we have to control? Last time I gave one example. What was the example? Someone remembers? How to conquer lust? Lust was compared with tiger or a lion. The lust is as ferocious and as powerful as a lion or a tiger. Can we fight and win the tiger? No. It will kill us. But how the ringmaster is able to overpower so many tigers at one time? How? What is the trick? What is the trick? Starvation. Starvation. And here, the lust, which is vented through the senses, is compared to a venomous snake. And what the snake does is injects poison to the fang. So the fangs have to be broken. How? By making the mind strong. Making the mind strong means invoking the eternal relationship with the Lord and engaging the mind in serving the Lord. Then what happens? When we engage the mind in service of the Lord, then what is the result? The Supreme Lord controls our mind and senses. Krishna is Rishikesha. So Prabhupada writes in that purport in the first chapter, very, very remarkable purport, that the Supreme Lord controls the mind and senses of his surrendered devotee. Otherwise, who controls? Lust. Lust controls. So to make the mind strong, and even though the senses are very strong, they will be no more effective than the serpent with the broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and the senses also, still unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna. So what we have to do? We have to facilitate the association of Krishna with our soul. How do we do that? By regulating the senses, engaging the mind, and strengthening the intelligence. In Krishna consciousness, there is, unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna and Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down to the agitated mind. I'll give you one real story. Not story, the real happening. The biggest allurements of lust comes in the form of opposite sex and wealth. Prabhupada says allurements of wealth and woman. It has impacted big stalwarts. Right or wrong? This entire material existence, everyone is very much infatuated by these two most attractive material resources. So there were two good friends, and both were very successful professionals. This is from Mumbai, not many years back, maybe around 25 years back. They were very good friends. One was a merchant banker in a foreign bank, and the other was a financial analyst in one of the uh, financial publications. Both were very successful and both were good friends. So one day, the banker friend took his analyst friend to one of the ISKCON temples in Mumbai, Chopati temple. And they took darshan of the Supreme Lord in his deity form. They heard kirtan and they met the devotees. Both were very, very satisfied. They felt very happy. When I was coming today through India Gate, there was a lot of traffic. And what I saw, there was a stage. There's the big stage. I don't know. I was not knowing. I don't know whether you all know or not. Ministry of Culture has started some program. In India Gate, it was happening right now, just 1 hour before. Yeah, even one little 75 minutes before when I came from there. There was a big stage. And on that stage, they were running the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. I think some of our devotees must be there. They were live performing. And there was a very big digital screen where the Hare Krishna Dhunu was being, displayed and the Hare Krishna Dhunu was being played. So even Ministry of Culture has collaborated with ISKCON for promotion. So this two friends, so they became regular coming. The merchant banker became more serious. And after a few months, he gave up his job and he joined he joined the temple. And one day he told his friend, he gave his checkbook, that you go and withdraw all whatever is there in my bank account and please bring it to me. So this friend went there, and when he inquired from the banker at how much amount is there, it was a huge amount. So what he saw, that his friend, whatever he brought, he took that money and put it in the donation box, all of it. So he was very impressed. He never knew that his friend is so renounced. So anyway, he started to come more regular to meet his friend. And then finally there was some conflict in his family. They were not very happy with him coming to the temple and being so much close to devotees. But he was very determined, so he continued. And he had some financial difficulty also, but he did not compromise. He was a financial analyst, but not a stock operator. Please understand. Because he was very educated. He had done MBAs in many reputed colleges. And he was a very sharp brain. So what happened after a few days, he became a devotee. Both of them got initiated. And his friend became Deva Das, who is now Bhakti Rasamrit Swami. You know Bhakti Rasamrit Swami Maharaj? You don't know Bhakti Rasamrit Swami Maharaj? Very, very special soul. And his other friend, he got initiated as Anand Vrindavan Guru. In fact, I also met him. When I was to join ISKCON, I was not willing. I was not agreeing. But he gave me this confidence and counseling. And he told me that I promise you in your life, you will never face any financial problem. And it is 2008 I met him. So anyway, so he was revealing this fact. So he had financial difficulties when his father expelled him from the family. He was from a very rich Gujarati family. And his father said that if you do not accept my guru, then you cannot be my son. I, discard you from all my wealth. So he said, I'm not interested in your wealth. I'm interested in the real wealth, the wealth of the self. So anyway, so in that time when he was having this struggle, so one of his stock market friend, Ketan Parekh, he approached him. Any one of you? No, I think most of you don't know. It is good that you have remained distant from all this stocks and all this kind of speculation. And he said that both of you, we are good friends. Ketan Parekh is also Gujarati. Gujaratis are very smart in all this kind of business. They rule this business. They're very multi-millionaire, billionaire. You see Ambani's, Adani's, all of them. They're very rich, filthy rich. So he said, I have a proposal that there are so many banks who are supporting me, and we start a new venture. And in this venture, we will be partners of 50-50. And within few years, we can become the richest person in India. Your brain and my intelligence, we will work together with the funding of the government banks. We can make a fortune forever. Such a proposal, who will reject without investment? But this devotee, he said, okay, I will tell you after a few days. So he came to his friend who was in the temple and told him that this seems to be a very safe, secure, and sure short way of making so much money. And this money we can use for Krishna consciousness. We need funda to distribute books, to do yatras, for making programs. So money is required. So there is so much of struggle. In one stroke, we can get millions of dollars. But his friend, who was a devotee, he told him that we do not depend on anyone else, we depend on Krishna. So if we please Krishna, Krishna will provide the resources. But we are not interested in anyone else's money. So he said, for you, it is better for your Krishna consciousness that you give up this proposal. You don't get entangled with this. Leave it. So he did not reply. So after a few days, again his friends called him and he said that, when are you coming? When are you joining me? I have made all arrangement. We have taken a new office. The entire setup is ready. I would say from tomorrow you come and start the work. He said, thank you very much for your proposal, but I will not be able to join you because I don't want to be a part of this kind of. So he said, are you foolish? You would be the most foolish man in the earth who is rejecting such a so short proposal to earn a fortune. He said, whatever it may be, but please excuse me. My consciousness does not allow me, so I will not be a part of this. So he left it there. And after a few days, Ketan Parekh became one of the richest stock market operator in Mumbai. And he invited all his friends, his batchmates, his relatives. He had a big, what people do, they celebrate a big party. And he forced his friend that you did not join me, at least join me in my success. You come and share my success. He said, okay, I will come. And when he went there, so his friend, in front of all the assembled people, he said, I want you to meet my friend. And he said, he is that person who rejected my proposal. If he would have accepted, he would have had half the fortune of what I am having. So he insulted him very much. But this devotee, he did not mind. He came back and he forgot it. After a few months or barely a year, he saw on the newspaper, his friend's name was there and he was arrested. He was arrested by one of the enforcement directorate. Why? Because all what he did was manipulation. All manipulation. And he was caught. So it is very difficult for one who is not Krishna conscious to be able to say no to the proposals of lust. That is why in the final verse Krishna says that evam buddhe param buddha samstabhyam atmanam atmana jahi shatru mahabaho kamarupa durasadam. Thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence. O mighty Arjuna, one should study the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. What is deliberate spiritual intelligence? The intelligence which that devotee received from his counselor friend. If we do not have spiritual intelligence in our life, there is no way that we can counteract or we can combat what to say of conquering lust. It is impossible. But deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So what can conquer lust is only love. Love for the Supreme Lord. And how do we cultivate love for the Supreme Lord? By cultivating love with his representatives, his spiritual master, his devotees. If we do not have relationship or if we do not have connection with them, there is no way one can even think of resisting lust. What to speak of conquering lust. The third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without considering impersonal voidness and ultimate end. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities of lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. Desiring for overloading and sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind and intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribed duties, all of us. And so Krishna was not recommending to give up his prescribed duty. But one cannot perform his prescribed duty even. Why? What does not allow one to perform prescribed duty? Lust. It will not allow. But by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind. By steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculation and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yoga postures can never help. Prabhupada is saying can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence. If he has access, if he is fortunate enough to have higher intelligence. What is the higher intelligence? Coming from Guru, coming from Sadhu, coming from Shastra. If he has developed attachment for them. So what is the remedy? Is to replace lust by love. There's so many examples. I'll give you the example. When our temple was being constructed in Mumbai, Juhu, we have a very big, very fascinating temple in Mumbai, which is called Heaven on Earth. There was a very big battle. Prabhupada said it was a big, good fight. There was a big struggle, and Prabhupada was personally engaged. Prabhupada was personally, steering that battle. So the person on the opposite side was very powerful. He was the mayor of Mumbai, not a small person. And he had many, many printing presses of his own. And every day in his printing press, he would speak something negative about ISKCON. He did so much of damage. He did so much of damage that with his goons, he even demolished the structure of ISKCON. So he tried everything to make our ISKCON project unsuccessful. He took the money to give the land and then he cheated. Then he was saying that you have not fulfilled the conditions of the terms of the contract, so we take back the land and even not return your money. He was thinking these are foreigner peoples, Prabhupada disciple, what they will fight legal battle with us. Anyway, so there he tried one society girl to induce Srila Prabhupada's disciple. But nothing worked. Why? Because the disciple was devoted to serve Prabhupada. So if we have pure love to serve our Guru, our spiritual master, to serve Krishna, then lust is checkmated. And if you do not have that, then lust in this material existence is an undisputed winner. No one can combat or counteract lust. Not by any human effort. It is only possible when we please Krishna. Krishna takes charge. Krishna says in the 7th chapter, Krishna will speak, Devi Yesha Gunmai Mammaya Turatya Mameva Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Taranti. So it is only by the help of the Supreme Lord that one can conquer lust. And when is the Supreme pleased? When we serve Him selflessly. When we repose all our love towards Him by serving Him. Otherwise, there is no possibility. There is no solution. This is the sum and substance. So how to begin? How to come to the stage of even, practicing to cultivate love for Krishna is by performing our duties. Performing our prescribed duties very diligently. Not being affected by what the others are speaking or how our mind and senses are distracting us. To the extent we are focused in performing our duties, we will be purified. What is the purification? The senses will not be attracted towards the sense objects. The mind will not be degraded. And the intelligence will remain focused. Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi Ekaha Purnata. Then one will not be influenced by the forces of lust. Otherwise, it is impossible. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. It is exactly 1 minute to 9. Any discussion, question? You may ask. So first chapter, Krishna did not speak. Arjuna was speaking a lot, as if he knew. And Krishna began to speak. He first gave the identity of who we are. Then to realize that identity, he gave 2 duties. So here he is detailing about the duties. What we have to perform, our prescribed duties. Krishna spoke in the 2nd chapter, Karmanne Vadhikaras. So what is the adhikar? To perform our duty. From the level of duty consciousness, we can elevate to come to the level of love. And if we do not elevate to the level of love, we will be degraded to the level of desire. Then lust cannot be controlled. At the level of desire, what is there? There only lust. Hare Krishna. Boli. See how deep and how detailed analysis Krishna is giving about lust. Anywhere have you found anyone speaking or knowing or sharing about lust? Never. Nowhere. Anywhere there is such detailed discussion on soul? Nowhere. So the knowledge which is there in Bhagavad Gita cannot be found elsewhere. Such a miraculous book. Yatra Gita vicharascha pathanam pathanam yatha modate tatra Shri Krishna Bhagavan Radhaye Saha. Krishna tells Arjuna that yatra Gita vicharascha, wherever Gita is being discussed, pathanam pathanam yatha. How? Through the discussion of someone is explaining and the other is trying to understand. Pathanam pathanam. Modate tatra Shri Krishna. The Supreme Lord is very jubilant when he sees that here are some sincere souls who are trying to understand what the Supreme Lord has given us for our ultimate welfare. Bhagavan Radhaisa is not just jubilant, he appears there. So if we want to invoke the presence of the Lord, discuss Bhagavad Gita. And when we discuss Bhagavad Gita, what it means? That we have a desire to apply Bhagavad Gita in our life. So how to conquer lust is by practicing to engage, remain engaged in devotional service. Remaining Krishna conscious and engaging in devotional service. Hare Krishna. बोलिए कुछ कहना है या कुछ पूछना है? हाँ बोलिए. Of course. हाँ. हम सोल के लेवल पे है नहीं ना. सोल तो डॉर्मेंट है. एक्टिव है क्या? नहीं है. इसको एक्टिव करना है. हाउ टू मेक इट एक्टिव is by strengthening spiritual strength of the intelligence. What is the spiritual strength of the intelligence? That we discriminate what is good for us, which is spiritual. What is not to be engaged in, which is material. So this discrimination comes from where? From intelligence. So like you are hearing now, isn't it? So through the intelligence, what are we doing? We are awakening the soul. This is what we are doing. This is we have to practice. But if we go and see a movie and we see, the so-called hero and heroine, they are enjoying. So what the intelligence will tell you? I am also a hero. Let me also find some heroine. Isn't it? So what desire will come? The intelligence will be utilized in for lusty desires, to fulfill the lust. So, what we are doing, we are trying to awaken the soul by strengthening the intelligence, the spiritual intelligence. Deliberate Prabhupada is saying, Krishna is saying by Param Buddha. Param Buddha means by spiritual intelligence. What is the intelligence we are utilizing? Intelligence of Krishna. It is even higher than the soul. Isn't it? The more powerful than the soul. Much, much more powerful. Which is the source of all soul. So if we directly invoke the intelligence of the Supreme Lord, if we connect our intelligence to the intelligence of the Supreme Lord, how much power our intelligence will receive? What is the chance of lust controlling our intelligence? Is there any chance then? No. Simple way, but not so simple. Why? Because again and again we are pushed in the mode of passion. So passion, this determination will not come. So practice has to be there. We have to try to remain in the mode of goodness, not allow the lust to generate or impact us more. mode of goodness. How to be in the mode of goodness? Have good association. So, for this writing, we have to make the soul associate with Krishna. How do we make the soul associate with Krishna? By engaging in Krishna conscious activities. Isn't it? So it is gradually. The process is of purification. Okay. Anything else? Any other question? There is no, if there is no discussion, that means the concept has not even been registered. Not easy. Not easy to be able to even detect that we are controlled by lust. Most of the time we will not even accept that we are controlled by lust. Okay, I'll stop here. And from next session, we will start the transcendental knowledge. Very systematic progression is there. Krishna first establishes that we have spiritual identity, and that spiritual identity is covered by lust. It does not allow us to invoke transcendental knowledge. So when the lust is removed, then we can invoke transcendental knowledge. The fourth chapter is transcendental knowledge.